Welcome back, everyone. We're back with some topical discussion to have today. So we want to react to a bit of news that came out, I think, this week, really around Codeberg, the source code repository service, and its relationship with AI and LLM. I think there's interesting things happening here. It's good to see some news happening that's not just from America, so that's kind of good, but it's sort of triggers a whole lot of interesting points and discussions. So, Johanni, you flagged this to me last night, actually. Mm-hmm. I hadn't come across this news. So do you want to do a quick summary of what's going on here?
Okay, so this is a blog post that was posted yesterday at the time of us recording, so Thursday this week. It's a change in the policy of Codeberg, and Codeberg is the European GitHub for open source, effectively. This is a small line of change in the policy, and the blog post is a bit longer. I leave a link to the blog post itself and also the policy change itself in the comments below, so people can read it. The short of it is effectively Codeberg is no longer allowing LLM-written code in their repository. So the change itself is just a minor. Oops, it's not here. I need to find it here. Here's the pull. Actual pull request. This is just a single line. Basically very clearly saying if you write your code with generative AI, Claude, OpenAI, Gemini, whatever, your code is no longer welcome in our repo. However, there's a little bit caveat in the blog post where it says if your project was started a long time ago and it has kind of gotten some LLM code into it afterwards, and maybe you don't know it's LLM, whatever, they're not going to kick out projects, assuming the project is active and has a community following. So if you're running a project in Codeberg and you've already been doing and you have contributions from people you don't know where they came from, you don't have to be worried about it. So They're not going to be eliminating with an automation everything and so on. However, all my projects will be kicked out. So it's very clear, for example, our new client for Nextcloud Talk, that is actually quite important for Nextcloud because the Talk client is not usable on Android phones in bad connection. It's literally unusable software, which we have replaced. But it is mostly LLM-generated code, so that will no longer be welcome. It's not part of the thing. So there's a couple of caveats in this blog post. I think we can talk about it a bit more, but So let me prefix this discussion with one thing before I put opinions in here. Codeberg has all the right to change their rules. Like there's nothing, all my opinions here is not directly to Codeberg. I disagree with the decision, but they have all the right to make this very decision. So I don't really have a problem with that. So I just want to say that before I go.
Quickly, because I also wanted to, I think setting the context is going to be really important in this discussion. So firstly, what is Codeberg? Let's just step back for a second, because this is kind of different. So I've got a very hot and cold feeling about this whole topic. So Codeberg is it's a membership society. It's something called, what is that? Let me just get it right here. It's an Eingetragener Verein. So what that kind of means is like people sign up to be members of Codeberg, and it's run by the membership. So already that's kind of cool, right? I love that idea of members taking decisions collectively, what they want to see, which is damn good. So Codeberg itself didn't go and make a decision. There was a general meeting and members got to vote on various things. This was just one of the things they voted on. And it was quite a big majority that voted to add this to the terms of service.
70-30.
70-30. There was a discussion around it. They've got a forum for members, which I tried to figure out. Of course, I can't get access because I'm not a member. It would have been interesting to see how that discussion went on, and how balanced or unbalanced it was, and what the arguments were. But that's the thing. Codeberg is not a company. It's not got a profit motive. It's there for its members. Members are making decisions here. Kind of interesting stuff.
So it's a good good prefix to make before we dive into opinions. Yeah, there's a lot to digest here, but let's first share what they actually said in the blog post. The change itself was just one line, say no more LLM code. 70% said yes, so it's very clear majority rule. So okay, decision was done that way. The problem I have with this mostly is communication. Like this is maybe a very stereotypical open source community comms in the sense that it doesn't try to say anything else than that's basically just what they think. Might be okay. But a lot of these points are justified. I think all of the points are justified. So I'm not disagreeing with a lot of the points. I just disagreeing with some of the results. Well, they bring up a point of hungry LLMs. They use server space. That's not under question. We see a lot of more use. Like I've used it a lot. I share a lot of code I generated in Codeberg for the purpose of giving other people the results as well. I built a bicycle indoor training application that I give away everybody for free. Now it's mostly generated code, but I think it's also very useful. Same with the Nextcloud and other things. Now, all of these, of course, take server space, and they kind of they make this point of saying, well, a lot of these LLM projects are not actually collaborative work. They probably have can back that with data, but of course, neither. If you go to GitHub and look at open source projects, neither are those. Most of the projects have no collaboration at all. Very few of them do. But again, fair enough. Difficulties of getting hardware, fair point. That's we all struggling with all of these things.
So I think the thing so there are a lot of things that I feel in the communication is a bit weird, to be honest. I think a blog post is fine as a way to communicate this. I mean, in a way, we as users of Codeberg are not paying for this, so we just take what they give us, and that's fine. The communication could have been a little bit of more of a reveal of what the discussion points were, why it was decided like this, what the main arguments were. I think that would have been better. Unfortunately, the blog post was a bit of a rant against LLMs. Not saying none of those points are valid, because some of those points are valid, but it's kind of just seems like, hey, we made this decision and this is what we think about LLMs. What would have been cooler would have been to say, hey, we made this decision and this is what the membership were discussing and these were the main points. It would have been easy to summarize that with an LLM, funny enough. Just a joke, guys.
But I think so. I agree here. So my problem with this one is the communication is very adversarial. So it's basically creating a divide in this. I posted this in Mastodon yesterday saying we are now seeing a massive divide in the communities in general. We're splitting into two and it's becoming a flame war, not a discussion, which I think is counterproductive. This
is always going to happen, Yanni. It was always going to end up in this kind of two camp kind of thing. And I think it's kind of obvious that the free and open source community were going to sort of land on one side of this. If for no other reason than the
label. So I don't want to label everybody. Like, let's not say open source community, because I don't think it's fair to label everybody.
But I think there's a general... I mean, of course, generalization is always going to catch somebody on the wrong side of the generalization, right? But there's a sense, I mean, we should do a conversation about this separately, but there's a sense of LLMs are the kind of like the children of the big tech industry, right? With all of the money, with all of the extravagant resource usage, and free and open source software is never going to like the big tech industry. So there's kind of almost this natural opposition that's going to, even if it's just kind of a cultural divide, it's going to be this natural opposition that's going to emerge. And I don't think I see anything wrong with that. I mean, I think that it's good for us as an industry to have different opinions and say, well, there's this way of doing things and then there's that way of doing things. I think that a wholesale kind of like no to LLMs is a short-term move because it's a wave that's coming anyway. And I think there are a lot of open source models and so forth that kind of sit kind of in between the big tech and the open source communities. So, but that's maybe another topic.
I think just to kind of, I saw this post from Christian which I do appreciate. So Christian is one of the voting members of Codeberg. And he said that, in his opinion, at least reading from this post, is that the blog post goes beyond what was agreed in the community. So the blog post says something that they didn't actually agree on.
Right. Right.
Which I think that's why kind of my read of the situation as well is that I want to underline once more, I have nothing against them changing their terms. That's fine. If they kick out my projects, I will move somewhere else, and I fully accept that. I don't have an argument with that. The problem is the communication. This flame war approach communication is a problem, and especially if it goes beyond what the members agreed on. And I really truly appreciate Christian being very open about it, and he also says here that he's working on figuring it out, and there's a lot of good people in this community as well. So that's why I don't want to paint everybody with one brush. There's a lot of hope, and Codeberg is going to be core of the future. I'm talking about similar things, and hear similar things in F-Droid, which I'm part of the board of directors on, where F-Droid is seeing a massive spike in projects submitted to the store. And F-Droid process of approving software is fully manual. There's some automated phases, but currently it's dependent on volunteers doing it. And volunteers are overwhelmed. There are 300 apps waiting. And it's not possible to catch up with it. So what I think is the impact of this situation is going to be a quite harsh divide, different type of places and repositories of code and software, where we're going to have, funnily, in my opinion, this is going to make Codeberg the prime target of these big companies for training data. Because now it's going to be the best source for training data.
That was exactly my first thought when I read that. It's like, what? Yeah. So I've a couple of thoughts, right? So I think flame wars are great. I think we need to have strong opinions. We need to have people who have a hill to die on. I think those are all great. I think this is what innovation and so forth is built on. So I welcome people with coming together with strong opinions. You're going to have a group super strong opinions with LLMs. You have a group super strong opinions against LLMs. There's going to be truth about that in the middle. So that's a good thing. I think that, so there's a big picture here. The short term is, I think the AI industry is a bit toxic in the short term. I think the long-term trend, though, is that we are going to move, and we should move, away from thinking about code as a value in and of itself to products that actually solve problems for people. And unfortunately, I think the open source world is very much more about the code, and we all benefit from that. But there's a gap between the focus on the product and the actual need of the customer. And so I personally want to land on the side of the product. Mm-hmm. And as much as I love code, I think that we've got to see the product as where we're going to get to. Very, very happy for people who want to stay in the code space and protect that. Super happy, and I'll support that too. But we have to recognize that the two things have different goals and different outcomes.
Yeah, I think this is again, there's a lot of different type of open source projects and products in sense, like I said this many times, I do not want people to write my next SSH server with LLMs. I really want it to be crafted by individuals who understand how it works. However, nobody has time to write the next Cloud Talk client that actually works, which I was able to do with LLMs, which I wouldn't have had time to do anyway. Now we have an open source Nextcloud Talk client that doesn't lose your messages if you lose network connection, which is kind of important for a corporate communication tool. Now we have that. So there's some lot of things in between and so on. But we also had talked yesterday a little bit about the differences of there's roughly two types of engineers around. There's a group of people in software who really want to craft code. And then there's a group of people who want to craft products. And this is a bit what you said here as well. The people who want to craft code, probably majority in the open source movement, because it probably pulls that type of people in it. And they see LLMs as a threat of their way of writing software, and probably justifiably so. Now, people like me, I've been writing code for 35 years now, and software professionally for 25 years. And at no point of that time, the code was my goal. Where I get pleasure from and enjoyment from was seeing the software run, seeing somebody else to use the software I built. The code wasn't, it was just means to an end.
Yeah.
And that's why once the LLMs became good enough that I no longer have to care about the code, they became a tool, the de facto tool for me to create software, because I wouldn't have time to do the rest otherwise. There's other downside of LLMs. We have to acknowledge the environmental impact and things like that. You can't just ignore those. And that's kind of the state we are. Another thing that I would like to kind of bring up in this discussion is that I've seen this same discussion before, and you have as well, because you've been around long time enough. So when we moved from C to Java, 1997, Java took over memory management from C. You no longer manage memory manually. And I was told that Java will never become popular because it's literally impossible for machines to manage memory. You can't do Java code because, it's okay, well, that's kind of demonstrably false. Although I would not want a garbage collection to run in the software that flies the airplane, right? So there's places where certain tools work, certain tools don't work. But this discussion is eerily similar to the memory allocation discussions, that you can't generate code because it's going to be garbage. Well, you can't manage memory automatically, it's going to be garbage. It's very similar. I understand there's differences, but I think I've seen this before.
Yeah, I think, of course, the future, unfortunately, we've got more and more into this kind of hype. So actually technology advancement has become sort of twisted up with this kind of fear of missing out, this jumping on the bandwagon, this suddenly winner takes it all mentality. I think there's a lot of unhealthy sides to not the technology side of necessarily, but the kind of commercial sort of side of Silicon Valley basically. And I think that's really polluted a lot of the thinking about it. And I would say that, probably also another conversation for us to have separately is around the claims of the AI industry, I think are damaging the truth about AI and what it's good at and what it's not very good at.
Well, simply calling it AI is damaging in my opinion.
That's why I call them LLMs. Yeah, exactly so. So I think what we've got here though is this exaggerated claim that is creating a lot of sort of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And then you've got a group of people who are wanting to preserve what they believe has true value. And that's fine. That's totally cool. I do predict, and I think it's probably okay, that we do end up with these kind of camps. And if in a way, if Codeberg had come out even stronger and said, we want to be a community of people who write code, not machines who write code. And if they had an even stronger rejection of LLMs, I would have been even happier about that. Not that I agree with everything, but it would be clear what's going on there.
So, right? But the problem with this messaging, I agree, that messaging would have been good. The problem is that they do like a straw man attack on LLMs. So this is the problem I have with flame wars in general, is that it's quite often not about the substance, it's about straw man. So you go, well, look, Android is just shit, how laggy it is. Well, have you used Android? No. Okay, well, this is a discussion we have had a few times, not between us, but with somebody else we know. The same thing here, if you see how they paint LLMs, it's a straw man, it's not reality. And this is what rubs people the wrong way, and that starts a flame war. And say, well, you are fighting something that isn't true. It's literally the straw man fallacy. And that causes unhealthy discussion, in my opinion. What I like about strong opinions is you pro something. If you're against something, that always causes a problem. The way you frame it would be perfect. They're saying, we want to be a community of people writing code. Great. All for it. But then you say, well, LLM projects have no community. Well, that's demonstrably not true. You're saying something that isn't true. Like, okay, now you're fighting a straw man again. And this is not productive, in my opinion.
Yeah, I suppose what would be helpful, to be fair to Codeberg, I'm just looking here at their website. It says, what is Codeberg? This is their page, right? And it says on Codeberg, you can develop your own free software projects, contribute to other projects, right? So free software is called out. And I think that's okay. There's like SourceForge and places like that where also have this culture which is also fine and also good. So if they'd gone a little bit harder that way and said, this is who we want to be, and that's kind of okay. I think that LLMs are going to trigger an interesting discussion. I think the LLM on its own is not super interesting. I think the effect on the industry is going to be interesting, and I think the effect on what we value as a good product versus a bad product is going to be interesting. But yeah, I think there's a bit of a missed opportunity here. And I looked at some of the reporting on it, and the reporting was kind of like Codeberg bans LLMs kind of thing, right? Which also is not quite what they were saying either. But it's a kind of, they missed an opportunity to kind of spin a positive story to say Codeberg, I don't know, doubles down on open source or double down on handwritten software as the, the best way of creating sustainable, open source communities or whatever it is they believed,
clicks. Right? I need more clicks. Like
maybe that's also fair.
But I think I know we don't have a long discussion today. I think we're going to get back to this, but I want to circle back to one of the topics that we kind of glossed over, but you mentioned this kind of the dislike of American Silicon Valley approach of LLMs. And I fully agree with that one. I personally, I despise Sam Altman. That's why I don't use Codex at all. I just can't make myself use it. I don't say Anthropic is much better, which is my tool of choice at the moment. I really, really don't like our dependency on American technology at the moment. But there's a silver lining in this one. Unlike many other tools in the history, LLMs at the moment do not come with vendor lock-in. The capability of switching between tools is trivial. Yeah. Once the Kimi K model or something like that is available on a European server by Mistral or whoever puts in there, which is apparently similar as Claude Fable model, similar capabilities, I can just switch to that service in 3 minutes and I will not miss Claude. You see what Anthropic is trying to do. They're trying to slowly lock you in with tools like Claude Design, Teamwork, all of these kind of things. They're trying to figure out how can we get people to stay in this platform when the quality of the model is trivial. And we're going to slowly get to a point where the quality of the model is going to be trivial. Like all of the open source models, DeepSeek, they come from China, which is not much better than America, arguably not better at all. But those are open source models. You can take the model, you can run it on a European server, you can run it. I don't know actually what the state of Mistral is at the moment. Last time I tried it wasn't suitable.
Actually, last night I spent some time with Mistral last night. Right. Probably another conversation to have.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. But the only thing I wanted to say about this is that I do agree with the political stance. With a lot of these people say they see some Altman saying some really, really stupid shit on TV, and they go like, "That guy's an asshole," and he definitely is an asshole. I really despise that person, and say I don't want to give him money. Fair. Fully agree. I don't want to give him money either. I don't want to give money for Anthropic either, but I do, because at the moment it allows me to do work that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So there's kind of we're fighting multiple battles at the same time. And we need to keep fighting these battles. We need to get European models. We need to get open source models there. And we need to stop paying money for this. But at the moment, I don't feel like I'm going down, like locking in myself into Google ecosystem or Anthropic ecosystem. I'm just using a tool that is currently working for me, and I can switch between the tools all the time.
I think so firstly, lock-in is something we now can see coming a lot clearer than it used to be, because we understand the mechanism for doing that. So that's a good thing. I do think that Codeberg is based in Germany. It's got a very probably European sort of bias, I would have thought. Just to kind of enrage people, I have questions about the idea of open source being Europe's kind of future for digital tech sovereignty, and I'll be talking a bit more about that in the future as well. So it's great to have this. I think we need to make sure that we don't get ourselves into a kind of negative spiral here in Europe where we are looking at kind of saying no to everything and trying to kind of create walls around ourselves because we don't like the new stuff that's coming. I'm not sure if this is it. It's sort of the tone of the blog post is a little bit that direction. Yes. Not not wholly, but a little bit that direction. It could be misinterpreted that way. And like we were saying, you know, a positive statement about the value of open source community, you know, writing code with care and attention and quality over quantity, all of those would be much stronger arguments to have. But I think they also should be balanced and say, well, listen, this is just one way of doing it. The industry is changing whether we like it or not. The future is not going to look like the past, and we don't have a problem with the future, you know, but this is not this is a different future that we want, right? And I think the argument needs to be made, what does the future look like in a free open source software world versus in this case, an LLM driven world? I think that's a discussion that needs to be had in a positive way, right? Yeah.
Unfortunately, to me, this means I probably have to go back to GitHub, which I really, really don't want to go. I need to figure out where can I host my projects at this point. There's some places, CodeFlow seems to be pretty nice. We're using it quite heavily in closed projects in our business. It's free. We really need to start paying for it. We use it so much that our business will start paying for it.
Yeah.
Payment is voluntary. I do not know where they're going to go. The backend is same. They run the same backend, same what everybody runs. So I need to figure out where can I put. I also don't want to overload individual servers. So if anybody watching this has a kind of idea of where to host LLM heavy open source projects now in Europe, that I would really appreciate some tips, because I really GitHub is not something I want to go back to if I can avoid it.
But again, the key thing is like what we're talking about here for us is we're building software from scratch using LLMs, but the software we're building has got a very clear intention, and it's something that we're using and making available for other people to use. It's not that we are, you know, storing huge amounts of unnecessary data. We're not spamming. We're just basically writing software, but with different tools than we used to 2-3 years ago.
Cool. Maybe this is a good place to wrap up this discussion. I think we're going to be returning into this discussion. I have a lot to say about how the LLMs could positively impact third-party app ecosystems that might be struggling. I also think LLMs have really good chance of helping in the usability side of open source projects. As projects are struggling to find designers, things like that. I think these are discussions we can talk maybe next time.
Man, we should talk about that. I think I'm going to have strong opinions that might not be quite so in line with you. So let's talk about that one for sure.
Let's have a flame war in the podcast.
That's it. That's what you need.
Cool. Yes. Thanks, Jasper. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you next time.